sugar plums, welcome back to my channel. Today guys, I'm gonna show you how to make a console table using some planters and a mirror. Guys, this video is extremely long, so I had to split it in two. So this is part one of the video. Make sure you watch part two to have the final result. Guys, thank you so much for all of you who come back, and if it's your first time here, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel please, and hit the bell icon to be notified on all my new videos. Let's just go ahead and jump into that tutorial right now. Okay guys, now the first step is make sure that you have all your planters. Now I'm gonna be using E6000 and some hot glue to glue my planters, on top of each other, but you have to glue it in a way that you see fit. Now this is the way I chose to do it, but you guys, you're welcome to do whatever you want. So after I finish gluing the planters guys, I'm gonna go ahead, go over all the part that I connected with the glue and the E6000. I'm gonna go over that with some silicone to make sure that the crack doesn't show, and then I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry overnight. And then guys, I'm gonna go ahead and show you after that what I did to make sure my planter had like a little bit of weight to it. So I had to go and added some cement inside the planter. I actually use cement on the very top part of the planter, but I wish I use it on both the bottom part and the top planter as well. But so if you're gonna go ahead and use that same method I'm doing guys, go ahead and use cement in both at the bottom part and the top part. That way it'll be better balance. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you see this part guys, and I will be back to show you the next step. Okay guys, now this is the next morning. You can see my cement is completely dry, and then I'm gonna go ahead and paint the whole thing with a metallic rose gold spray paint, and this color is extremely pretty and I love it. So you're gonna be seeing me do that, and I went over it with a couple of coat, and this is what it looked like after we finish spray painting the whole thing. Okay guys, now the next step we're gonna be doing is I'm gonna go ahead and measure two pieces of plywood that I had, and I measured 18 inches by 22 and 3/4 inches. And then because the plywood is really thin, I'm gonna go ahead and use two pieces. I'm gonna put some hot glue in between them, clamp them together, and then let that dry overnight. But guys, if you want to use a thicker piece of plywood, you can do this, but I'll consider if you not to use like a very thick one, because you're gonna need to drill it and then attach it to the planter with some E6000 and some zip tie later on. So it'll make your life a little bit easier if you can have like some thin pieces and then attach them, glue them together. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue that, and then I'm gonna put some clamp all over it, and then I'll let it dry overnight, and then the next morning this is what we're gonna have. Now what I'm gonna be doing now, after I put my plywood on top of it, I'm gonna find the center, and then I'm gonna draw the circle of the column at the bottom part, so to make sure I have the center all the time, because I don't want to lose that the center while I'm doing other stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead with a heavy duty spray, and I'm gonna spray paint the top of the plywood, and then I'm gonna use a 2-inch foam to put on top of it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use a mirror with its frame, but if you want, you can use a mirror without the frame. It's all up to you guys, but I chose to use mine with the frame. And then I find the center of the the top of the table, and then I draw my mirror my mirror shape in the center, and then I'm gonna go ahead and remove the part that have the mirror, because I want my mirror to sink into it. I don't want it to sit on top of the foam, if that make any sense. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove that, and then I'm gonna go over the edges where I have the foam. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure everything is glued together, and if it's not, I'm gonna use my spray to make sure the whole thing is glued together. Now after we finish doing that guys, we're gonna go over, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use that beautiful silver gray fabric to cover my my foam. Now I had the help of my husband to help me do that because I needed someone to pull it taut for me while I was using in my stapler gun to staple the whole thing down. So I go ahead and staple the whole thing down. After we finish, guys, this is how it's gonna look like, and then we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next step right after that. Okay, now what we're gonna be doing is I'm gonna go ahead and take my hand drill, and then I'm gonna go all around the planter. I'm gonna drill like 2 holes close to each other, and I'm gonna be doing that all around the planters. Those holes, guys, that's where I'm gonna attach the zip tie to make sure my plywood is attached to the zip tie. It's not gonna move, it's not gonna go anywhere. And then to make sure, like I say, you need to drill a circle and then put the circle on top of the planter after you finish drilling it, and then with a sharp sharpie, use it inside the hole to mark the points where you're gonna need to drill the plywood. So I went over and drill my plywood to match the hole in the planter, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put it on upside down again, where I have my circle is gonna be on top of the planter. Make sure this is how you're gonna do it, guys. Now to cover the rough edges where I have all the staples showing, I'm gonna go ahead with some cardboard. I'm gonna use like 4 strips of cardboard. I'm not gonna use a whole cardboard because you need to see the circle to be able to put the zip tie on top of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put 4 strips of plywood all around it to give it a more neat look. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, guys, and then you're gonna see me using the zip tie inside the planters and up to the plywood and back into the planter, and then tie the whole thing together. I'm gonna let you watch this part, guys, and then we'll be right back to show you the next step. Okay, guys, now after I finish attaching all my zip tie, and I cut them to be really short, I'm gonna go over each one of them with some E6000 to make sure those doesn't come off anytime soon. So it's best if you do that. I do recommend for you to do that, guys, because sometimes I use zip tie before and then over time it will just come off. Now this is the mirror frame that I'm gonna be using. With the mirror, I went and covered the mirror with some painter's tape, and then I'm gonna spray paint the whole thing with the same rose gold metallic I use to spray paint my planters. I'm gonna go over it with a few coat again, and then you'll see me also using spray painting 2 strips of the foam, and you'll see what I used that for. But I'm gonna go ahead and spray paint the foam the same color as well, and I'm gonna let it dry for like a few hours until before I do anything else. So this is what I'm doing right now, guys. The foam, I'm using 2 pieces because I didn't have like a foam long enough to use one single strip, but you can use that if you have that. Now this is after my mirror is completely dry with the spray painting, so I'm gonna go ahead and use some glue to glue the whole thing down. And I wasn't gonna take any chances, guys. You're gonna see me using 3 different type of glue. I'm gonna be using some E6000, I'm gonna be using a silicone glue, and I'm gonna go over it again with some hot glue. Yeah, I wasn't gonna take any chances because ain't nobody got time for that thing to come off and then we have to go and do it. No, 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 no. So I'm gonna go ahead over it with all those 3 glue, and then I'm gonna glue my mirror down, and then I'm gonna put some heavy stuff on top of it and leave it like this to dry overnight and make sure our mirror is stuck. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you see that part, and then I'll come back to show you the next step. Okay guys, moving on to the part where I had the foam. Remember the foam that I spray painting? Well, this is what I'm gonna be using it for. Now this part where we connected two planters together, you it's it will be really hard for you to cover this part. So the best option I found is to use the foam and then spray painting the same color as the planter, and then put it in, inside that, making like a circle with it, and it worked perfectly fine because it gave the planter a whole new look. So make sure to put some hot glue at the top and at the bottom, and then glue the foam inside, that little circle that you have. Now to make sure that I don't have the little space showing, I'm gonna go ahead and use some pearl to cover this whole part where the space is showing, and I'm gonna also use some pearl at the very top of the foam. Don't worry guys if it doesn't look straight or perfectly neat. It's fine because it's not gonna be showing anywhere after we're done with it. Okay, now guys, I'm gonna go ahead and let you finish watching this part, and then we'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, now after I finish adding a pearl, as you can see guys, there's no space showing, so I'm gonna use that pretty pink and silver glittery trim, and then I'm gonna glue that on top of the pearl. And also make sure it's gonna be half and half, on top of the pearl and the planter at the same time, and it's gonna fix the whole thing. I'm using a spoon to make sure I flatten the part to be nice and flat for the whole thing to be completely glued down. I'll be doing the same thing for the bottom part, but it's gonna be a little bit later on. Though I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that all the part, the trim that I'm gonna be using, the whole part, I'm gonna start at the back and finish at the back, so that way everything will be uniform, and then we're not gonna have like a part showing that it's glue here and it's glue there. Make sure you start at the back and finish at the back. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next thing that we're gonna be doing guys, and also I use a little bit of X6000 on top of every part that I finish gluing. Now for this part of the planter, again, this part, it will be showing that this is a planter and we don't want it to look like planters at all. I'm gonna go over this whole part with a diamond wrap, and then as you guys can see, I'm only putting the glue in the center, where the two connect, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use a spoon to cinch this part, making it like like a cinch waist. Okay, we're gonna finish gluing this. I'm gonna let you watch this, and then we'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, now after finish gluing the top part, I'm gonna flip my table upside down and do the same thing for the bottom part. Now to give this, the edge of the table a neater look, I went over the whole thing with a diamond wrap as well and give it a finished look. Now we're gonna use the same pink trim that you used before to glue. This is the bottom part, the very bottom part of the planter. We're gonna use that all around it, and then we're gonna glue it. Again guys, I start at the back and finish at the back, so that way you can have a nice look. So the front part is not gonna have like any glue showing or anything of the sort. Okay, after I finish that, we're gonna go ahead and flip our table right side up again, and then I'm gonna use the same black diamond wrap that I use at the waist of the the white diamond wrap. I'm gonna go ahead and use it at the little bump that you're gonna be showing right here guys, the two little bumps. I'm gonna use black diamond wrap on both of them, but before that I'm gonna go ahead and use the same trim, the same pink trim that I used before. Remember I told you I'm gonna use it also where the pearl at the where the foam is. I'm gonna go ahead and glue glue that also right there at the foam to make sure, you know, I have my finished look. So again, I'm gonna use half on top of the pearl and half on top of the foam. And like I say, guys, you know, the pearl, when you use it, it doesn't matter if it's not neat, if it's not straight, this part is gonna fix the whole thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then after I finish doing that, guys, I'm gonna go and use the black diamond wrap I told you before, at the part that have the little bump on it. And then that's gonna be part one, guys, and then we'll come back for part two. Please make sure to watch part two. So I'm gonna let you finish watching this test, and then please click on part two in the description box to watch the finished result. So I'll see you guys in part two. Okay, bye.